Sometimes the hardest words to say are the ones that matter the most. There are moments in love when your heart is full of emotions, yet your lips stay silent. Not because you don't care, but because you care too deeply. You sit there looking at the person who means the world to you, and a simple thought keeps echoing inside your soul. My love, I want to discuss something important, but I'm afraid. Afraid that the truth might change something between us. Afraid that the moment we open this conversation, nothing will ever feel the same again. But love, real love, isn't built on silence. It's built on courage. The courage to be vulnerable, the courage to speak from the deepest part of your heart, and the courage to trust that the person you love will understand the truth behind your words. Today, I want to talk about that moment, that quiet, trembling moment in love, when your heart whispers something important, and you must decide whether to keep it hidden or finally let it be heard. Because sometimes the most beautiful thing we can say to someone we love is simply, "My love, there's something important I need to share with you." There are moments in love when the heart becomes heavy with words that have been waiting for the right moment to breathe. Words that sit quietly behind our smiles, hiding inside our silence, waiting for courage to finally open the door. And today, I feel that moment standing right in front of me. My love, I want to discuss something important, but every time I try, my heart hesitates. Not because I doubt you, not because I doubt us, but because when something matters deeply, it becomes fragile in our hands. And sometimes we are afraid that even the softest truth might tremble the beautiful world we have built together. When I look at you, I don't just see a person. I see memories. I see late nights filled with laughter, quiet moments where words weren't needed, and those small, beautiful silences where our hearts somehow understood each other without speaking. Love has a strange way of doing that. It builds a language between two souls that the world cannot hear. And in that language, every look matters. Every pause matters even more. That is why this feels so difficult. Because when you love someone deeply, you don't want to disturb their peace. You don't want to place weight on their heart. You want to protect their smile the same way you protect your own breath. And your smile has always been something sacred to me. There were days when the world felt too loud, too heavy, too complicated. Days when nothing made sense. Days when everything seemed to fall apart piece by piece. But then you would appear in the middle of that chaos like a quiet sunrise. Not loud, not dramatic, just warm, gentle, real. And somehow the world would slow down again. That is what love does when it is genuine. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand attention. It simply stays, quietly, faithfully, like a calm ocean that holds the sky inside its reflection. You became that calm in my life. But love is not only made of beautiful moments, it is also made of truth. Honest truth that sometimes feels uncomfortable, sometimes even frightening. And I think that is where my heart is standing right now, because there are things inside me that I want to share with you. Thoughts that have been slowly growing, quietly shaping the way I see us, the way I see the future, the way I see love itself. But every time I try to bring them into the light, something inside me whispers, what if this changes everything? It is strange how fear can grow, even inside the safest love. Not fear of losing you, but fear of hurting something precious. You see, when two people love each other deeply, their hearts become connected in ways that are hard to explain. Your happiness begins to matter as much as your own. Your pain feels personal. Your silence feels loud. And suddenly every word becomes important. You start thinking carefully before speaking. You weigh your sentences. You replay conversations in your mind, because the last thing you ever want is to create distance between two hearts that once felt inseparable. But silence has its own weight too. Sometimes silence becomes a quiet wall, not built with anger, not built with misunderstanding, but built with hesitation, with maybe later, with this isn't the right time, with I don't want to ruin the moment. And slowly those unspoken words begin to grow heavier. They follow you into quiet nights, They sit beside you during peaceful mornings. They appear in your thoughts when you look at the person you love. Not as regret, but as a gentle reminder that honesty is part of love too. Because love is not just about protecting happiness. It is also about sharing truth. Real love does not ask us to hide who we are. It asks us to be brave enough to show it. And that is what makes this moment feel so important. My love, I want to discuss something important, but I want you to understand something first. This is not a conversation born from doubt. It is not born from the absence of love. If anything, it is born from the depth of it. Because the deeper love grows, the more honest it wants to become. When we first meet someone, everything feels light. Conversations are easy. Smiles come naturally. We share stories, dreams, jokes, and little pieces of our past without much fear. But as time passes and hearts begin to connect more deeply, something changes. Love becomes real, and when love becomes real, vulnerability follows. Suddenly, we are not just sharing happy stories anymore. We are sharing fears, insecurities, uncertainties, and questions about the future. We begin to reveal the parts of ourselves that are not perfect, the parts that are human, and sometimes that is terrifying. Because being vulnerable means giving someone the power to see you completely, not just the strong version of you, not just the confident version, but the quiet version that sometimes feels unsure, the thoughtful version that carries questions, the emotional version that wants to protect love at all costs. That version of me is standing here now. And I think the reason I hesitated for so long is because I didn't want this moment to feel heavy. I didn't want it to feel like a problem. I didn't want it to sound like something was broken. Because nothing about loving you feels broken. If anything, loving you has been one of the most peaceful experiences of my life. You brought calm into places where chaos once lived. You brought understanding into moments where confusion used to exist. You made ordinary days feel meaningful. A quiet walk suddenly felt like an adventure. A simple conversation suddenly felt like something special. Even silence felt comfortable. And that kind of connection is rare. It's the kind of connection people spend their entire lives searching for. That's why this conversation matters. Because when something is valuable, we take care of it, we nurture it, we protect it with honesty. We give it space to grow instead of pretending everything is perfect all the time. Love is not perfection, it's presence. It's two people choosing to stay real with each other even when reality feels uncertain. And right now, my heart wants to stay real with you. There are things inside me that I want to explore with you. Questions about life, about direction, about the way love grows when two people truly commit to understanding each other. Not just on the surface, but deeply. Because love should not feel like walking on fragile glass where every step might break something. Love should feel like standing on solid ground where truth is welcome, where honesty is safe, where two hearts can speak freely without fear of losing each other. And maybe that is what I want more than anything. Not a perfect relationship. Not a relationship without questions, but a relationship where questions can exist without threatening the love itself. Where two people can sit together and talk about the things that matter, the things that shape their future, the things that shape their hearts. Sometimes those conversations are easy, sometimes they are not. But the courage to have them is what makes love strong. Because silence may keep peace for a moment, but truth builds peace for a lifetime. And I don't want temporary peace with you. I want lasting understanding. I want the kind of love where we can sit across from each other and say, let's talk about what matters. Even if our voices shake a little, even if we need time to find the right words, even if the conversation moves slowly. Because the truth is, love is not measured by how perfect our moments are. It is measured by how deeply we are willing to understand each other, how patiently we listen, how gently we speak, how sincerely we try to see the world through the other person's heart. And every time I think about that, I realize something beautiful. The reason this conversation feels important is not because something is wrong. It's because something is worth protecting. You, us, what we've built together, and what we might build in the future. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is pause and say, let's understand each other even more. Not out of fear, but out of care. Not because love is fading, but because love is growing. And growth always asks questions. It asks us to look deeper. It asks us to listen more carefully. It asks us to share the parts of ourselves that we might normally keep hidden. And maybe that's why my heart has been quietly whispering this sentence again and again. My love, I want to discuss something important, but every time I reach the edge of that sentence, I stop. Not because I don't trust you, but because I respect what we have so much that I want to say everything the right way. I want my words to carry honesty without carrying fear. I want them to reflect love instead of worry. I want them to show that this conversation is not a storm. It is simply a moment of truth between two people who care deeply about each other. And maybe that is the most human thing about love. Two hearts sitting together, trying to understand life, trying to understand each other, trying to protect something beautiful, while also allowing it to evolve. Because love that never evolves becomes fragile. But love that grows through honesty becomes unbreakable. And I believe what we have deserves that kind of strength. The kind of strength that comes from patience. The kind of strength that comes from listening. The kind of strength that comes from saying difficult things with a gentle heart. You see, loving someone is not just about enjoying the beautiful moments. It is about standing beside them when the conversation becomes real, when emotions become deeper, when the heart opens a little wider than usual. Because that is where true connection lives. Not in perfect days, but in honest ones. And right now, my heart is simply asking for that honesty. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. The same quiet way love first entered my life when you appeared in it. The same calm way our connection grew over time, and the same gentle way my heart now whispers the words it has been holding for so long. My love, I want to discuss something important. But sometimes love brings us to quiet crossroads, not the kind that the world notices, not the kind that changes everything in a dramatic moment, but the kind that happens silently inside the heart. A place where thoughts grow deeper, emotions become more honest, and two people slowly realize that love is not just about the beautiful days they share, but also about the conversations they must be brave enough to have. My love, I want to discuss something important, but every time I begin to think about it, I pause. I pause because you matter to me more than words can explain. And when someone matters that deeply, every sentence suddenly feels heavy with responsibility. You start wondering if the words you choose will carry the warmth of your heart, or if they might accidentally carry a weight that was never meant to be there. Love does that to us. It turns ordinary words into powerful things. A simple sentence can become comfort. A small phrase can become reassurance. And sometimes even silence can become a message of its own. That is why this moment feels so delicate. Because when two people love each other deeply, they begin to care about the emotional world they create together. They start protecting each other's peace, guarding each other's feelings, and doing everything they can to keep the connection gentle and safe. And you have always been someone whose peace I wanted to protect. Your heart is not just something I admire. It is something I respect. The way you care, the way you listen, the way you see goodness in places where others might overlook it, those things are rare. And when someone rare enters your life, you begin to treat the relationship with a kind of quiet reverence. You don't want to rush things. You don't want to speak carelessly. You don't want to risk breaking something that feels meaningful. So you hold your thoughts carefully. You turn them over in your mind again and again, asking yourself, if this is the right moment, if this is the right way, if the words will reflect the love behind them. Because the truth is, when you say, I want to discuss something important, people often hear it as the beginning of a problem. But that is not what this is. This is not about distance. This is not about disappointment. This is not about love fading. If anything, it is about love becoming more real. Real love does not live only in laughter and comfort. It also lives in honesty, in reflection, and in the willingness to grow together instead of pretending everything will always remain simple. The truth is, love changes as time moves forward, not in a way that weakens it, but in a way that deepens it. At the beginning, love feels exciting and new. Everything about the other person feels fascinating. You learn their favorite songs, their favorite foods, the stories from their childhood, the dreams they once whispered to themselves before anyone else heard them. And each discovery feels beautiful. You look at them and think, how did someone like you enter my life? You feel grateful, you feel lucky, you feel amazed that the universe somehow brought two paths together at the same moment. But as time passes, love grows roots. And when love grows roots, it becomes more than excitement. It becomes commitment. It becomes understanding. It becomes the quiet promise that two hearts will continue learning about each other even after the first spark has settled into something calmer. And in that calmer love, new questions appear. Not questions that threaten the relationship, but questions that invite deeper connection. Questions about the future. Questions about dreams. Questions about how two lives can continue moving forward together in a way that feels honest for both hearts. Sometimes those questions are easy to talk about, but sometimes they require courage. Because when you love someone deeply, you don't want them to feel uncertain or worried. You want them to feel safe with you, protected by the sincerity of your intentions. And I want that for you more than anything. I want you to feel that loving me never comes with confusion or doubt about my heart. My love for you is not fragile. It does not disappear during difficult conversations. It does not weaken when emotions become serious. If anything, it grows stronger in those moments, because love that cannot survive honesty was never real love in the first place. Real love listens. Real love stays present. Real love allows space for thoughts, feelings, fears, and hopes to exist without judgment. And that is the kind of love I believe we share. Still, I would be lying if I said this conversation doesn't make me nervous. Not because I think you will react badly, but because when something is precious, even the smallest shift in its atmosphere feels noticeable. It's like holding something delicate in your hands. You know it is strong, but you still handle it carefully. You still move lowly. You still make sure every action comes from respect. That is how I feel about this moment. Because what we have built together is not ordinary. It is something I take for granted. It is something I value deeply. The way we understand each other, the way we support each other, the way our presence brings calm instead of chaos. Those things are rare. And rare things deserve honesty. Sometimes people avoid important conversations because they are afraid the truth will break something. But sometimes the opposite is true. Sometimes truth is the very thing that protects love, because honesty removes the invisible distance that silence slowly creates. Silence can feel peaceful at first. It allows moments to remain light and comfortable. But when important thoughts stay hidden for too long, they begin to create a quiet separation between two hearts. Not because the love disappears, but because the words that could bring clarity remain unspoken. And I don't want that kind of silence between us. I don't want a love where we pretend everything is simple while our thoughts quietly remain locked away. I want the kind of love where we can sit together and speak openly, where we can say, this is what I'm feeling, where we can say, this is what I'm wondering about, where we can say, this is something important to me. And instead of fear, those words are met with patience, because love should feel like a place where truth is welcomed, not avoided. I want to know your thoughts the same way I hope you want to know mine. I want to understand your dreams, your concerns, your hopes for the future, not just the easy ones, but the complicated ones too. Because real connection is built through understanding every layer of another person's heart. The bright layers, the uncertain layers, the hopeful layers that people rarely share with anyone. Love, gives us permission to explore those layers together. Not as strangers trying to impress each other, but as two people who have already chosen to care. When I say I want to discuss something important, I'm not asking for a dramatic moment. I'm asking for a real one. A moment where we can look at each other honestly, where we can listen without rushing, where we can speak without fear that our words will be misunderstood. Because the foundation of everything we share is trust. Trust that our intentions come from love. Trust that our hearts are on the same side. Trust that even when conversations feel serious, they are still held inside the safety of our connection. And that trust is something I never want to lose. If anything, I want to strengthen it. I want our love to be the kind that grows deeper with every honest conversation. The kind that becomes stronger because two people refuse to hide from truth. The kind that remains calm even when emotions become vulnerable. Because vulnerability is not weakness in love, it is courage. It is the willingness to open your heart completely and say, "This is who I am. These are the things that matter to me." And when someone receives that honesty with kindness, something beautiful happens. The relationship becomes real in a way that no romantic moment alone could ever create. It becomes a partnership between two souls who trust each other enough to share everything, not just their joy, but also their thoughts, their uncertainties, their reflections about life. And maybe that is the kind of love I have always wanted. Not a perfect love story that avoids difficult conversations, but a sincere one where two people continue growing together, learning together, understanding each other more deeply with time. Because the truth is, life is always moving forward. Our dreams evolve. Our priorities shift. Our hearts learn new things about what they need and what they hope for. And love should move with that growth, not stand still pretending nothing will ever change. That is why this conversation matters to me, because it represents growth. Not separation, not fear, just growth. Two people pausing for a moment in their journey to look at each other honestly and say, "Let's keep building something meaningful." The kind of relationship where both hearts feel heard. The kind where both voices matter. The kind where love is not only expressed through affection, but also through thoughtful conversations about life. And the more I think about it, the more I realize something important. The reason my heart keeps returning to this sentence is not because it wants to create tension. It's because it wants clarity. It wants understanding. It wants the comfort of knowing that our love is strong enough to hold every honest thought we share. My love. I want to discuss something important, but every time I say those words, what I really mean is something much simpler. I mean that you matter to me enough for me to be completely real with you. I mean that our connection deserves honesty. I mean that. The future we imagine together should be built on open hearts instead of hidden thoughts. And most of all, I mean that loving you has taught me something beautiful about life. That love is not just about holding someone close during easy moments. It is also about sitting beside them when life asks deeper questions. Not with fear, not with hesitation, but with the quiet confidence that two people who truly care about each other can face any conversation together.